The humans called it archaeology. We called it grave robbing. Commander X9 watched the bipedal mammals scurrying around the sacred burial chamber like insects drawn to rotting meat. Their leader, a particularly annoying specimen named Marcus Kane, had just committed the most catastrophic mistake in galactic history, and the fool was still laughing about it. "Did you see Riley's face when I kissed that statue?" Marcus wiped tears from his eyes, his team erupting in fresh waves of laughter. Thought the poor kid was gonna pass out. The statue in question stood 12 feet tall, carved from midnight black stone that seemed to absorb light itself. For 1,000 years it had remained dormant in the deepest chamber of the Nexari temple complex. Now, thanks to human stupidity, cracks of silver light were beginning to spider across its surface. X9's forearms trembled with barely contained fury. These mammals had no idea what they'd awakened. The burial chamber housed the Nexari Empress Vala-Neth, the devourer of worlds, the bringer of the final war, the same empress whose last words before entering eternal slumber had been a promise to eradicate whatever species dared disturb her rest. "Sir, the readings are off the charts." Dr. Elena Torres called from her position near the scanning equipment. "The statue's internal structure is changing. It's almost like..." "Like what?" Marcus bounded over, still grinning like a fool. "Like it's coming alive." The silver cracks spread faster now, creating an intricate web across the statue's perfectly sculpted features. Those features belonged to Vala-Neth in her prime before the Great Purge, before the 13th System War, before she'd bathed entire planets in the blood of their inhabitants. X9 activated his emergency communicator with one of his lower arms while keeping the other three trained on various weapons. "Command, this is Observation Post 7. We have a Code Black situation. The humans have breached the final seal." Static crackled back. "Impossible. Our calculations showed they were centuries away from accessing the inner chamber. Tell that to the human who just kissed the Empress awake." In the chamber below, Marcus Kane was still basking in his crew's amusement, completely oblivious to the fact that he'd just signed his species' death warrant. The human exploration team had been on this moon for 3 months, systematically violating every sacred site they could find. They called it scientific discovery. The Galactic Council called it an act of war waiting to happen. Dr. Riley Park, the youngest member of their team, wasn't laughing anymore. "The kid had good instincts, better than his colleagues anyway. Guys, I don't think this is normal. The temperature in here just dropped 20 degrees, and my equipment is picking up some kind of energy signature." "Relax, Riley," Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "It's probably just the ventilation system reacting to our presence. These old temples have all sorts of automated responses." Automated responses. If only the fool knew. The silver light was pulsing now, synchronized with what sounded suspiciously like a heartbeat. Corvax 9 had studied the historical records. He knew what came next. First, the awakening. Then finally, the systematic annihilation of whatever poor species had disturbed the Empress's slumber. "Command, you need to authorize immediate orbital bombardment of this site," X9 transmitted urgently. "We have maybe 10 minutes before..." "Negative. The humans are still inside. Galactic Treaty 47b prohibits..." "Forget the treaty. When she wakes up, there won't be a galaxy left to enforce treaties." The statue's eyes opened. Not the slow, gradual awakening you might expect from a 1,000-year slumber. No, Vala-Neth's eyes snapped open like a predator that had just caught the scent of prey. They glowed with the same silver light that now covered her entire body, and when they fixed on Marcus Kane, the human's laughter died in his throat. "Well," she said, her voice carrying the weight of eons and the promise of violence. "That was unexpected." Marcus stumbled backward, his face draining of color. "Oh, guys, the statue just talked." "Statues don't talk, Marcus," Dr. Torres replied absently, still focused on her readings. "You are probably just hearing echoes from the chamber acoustics." Vala-Neth stepped down from her pedestal with fluid grace, her movements impossibly smooth for someone who'd been stone moments before. A kiss to wake the sleeping beauty. How perfectly human! Her smile revealed teeth like polished obsidian. "And how perfectly doomed you all are." The temperature plummeted another 30 degrees. Frost began forming on the chamber walls, and the human's breath misted in the suddenly frigid air. Dr. Torres finally looked up from her instruments, saw a 12-foot-tall alien goddess standing 3 feet away, and promptly fainted. "Now that's more like it," Vala-Neth purred. "Fear, I'd almost forgotten how delicious it smells." Marcus managed to find his voice, though it came out as more of a squeak. "You are real, you are actually real. Oh, I'm very real, little mammal. Real enough to turn your homeworld into a cinder. Real enough to paint the void with your species' blood. Real enough to make you regret the day your ancestors crawled out of whatever primordial soup spawned them." Riley was backing toward the chamber entrance, his survival instincts finally kicking in. Smart kid. Not smart enough to save his species, but smart enough to try saving himself. "Wait," Marcus held up his hands in what he probably thought was a calming gesture. "We can talk about this. We are explorers, not conquerors. We meant no harm." Vala-Neth laughed, a sound like breaking glass mixed with dying stars. "Meant no harm? You violated my tomb, disturbed my rest, and committed the ultimate act of disrespect by putting your pathetic mammalian lips on my sacred form." She took another step closer, and Marcus could smell ozone and death on her breath. "In my time, entire civilizations burned for lesser offenses. But you have been asleep for 1,000 years, Marcus protested. "Times have changed. The galaxy is different now." "Different how? Have mammals learned to fly without machines? Can you breathe in space? Do you no longer bleed red when cut?" She tilted her head, studying him like a particularly interesting insect. "No? Then nothing has changed that matters." Up on his observation perch, X9 was frantically trying to reach anyone with enough firepower to glass the entire moon. Unfortunately, the closest battle fleet was 3 days away, and diplomatic protocols were tying up every other available resource. By the time help arrived, the Vala-Neth would be long gone, and humanity's first contact with the Nexari Empire would be their last contact with anything. "Your species has made quite an impression on the galaxy," Vala-Neth continued, beginning to circle Marcus like a shark smelling blood. "Loud, aggressive, constantly expanding into territories that don't belong to you. Some of the council races find you amusing. Others find you irritating." Her smile turned predatory. "I find you delicious." Dr. Torres was starting to regain consciousness, groaning as she sat up. One look at the towering alien figure and she was scrambling backward on her hands and knees. "Marcus, what the hell is that thing?" "That thing," Vala-Neth said pleasantly, "is your new god, though you won't be worshipping me long enough for it to matter." Riley had reached the chamber entrance and was fumbling with his communicator. "Ace, camp. This is Exploration Team 7. We have a situation down here. I need immediate evacuation for the entire team." "What kind of situation, Riley?" came the crackled response. "The kind where an ancient alien warrior goddess is threatening to exterminate our entire species." Silence from the radio. "Then Riley, are you feeling all right? The atmospheric readings show elevated levels." "I'm not hallucinating," Riley screamed into the device. "Send help now." Vala-Neth glanced in his direction with mild interest. "Calling for backup." How quaint. I suppose you haven't learned that lesson yet. When facing an Nexari Empress, there is no backup. There is no retreat. There is only the choice between dying quickly or dying slowly. She raised one perfectly manicured hand, and Riley's communicator exploded in a shower of sparks and plastic. He yelped and dropped the smoking remains, nursing burned fingers. "Now then," Vala-Neth turned back to Marcus, who was still frozen in place like a deer caught in headlights. "Let's discuss the terms of your species' extinction. I'm feeling generous today, possibly because I'm well rested, so I'm prepared to offer you 3 options." "Options?" Marcus's voice cracked. "Option 1, I kill you quickly, then track down every human in the galaxy and kill them quickly too. Clean, efficient, minimal suffering. It would take me perhaps, 50 years to hunt down every last one of you." Dr. Torres whimpered. "Option 2, I kill you slowly, then track down every human in the galaxy and kill them slowly too. More satisfying for me, significantly less pleasant for you. This option would take considerably longer, perhaps 200 years, but the entertainment value would be substantial." And option 3. Marcus managed to whisper. Vala-Neth's smile turned absolutely horrific. Option 3. I don't kill you at all. I let you live just long enough to watch me systematically destroy everything you have ever cared about. Your homeworld, your colonies, your families, your friends, your pets, your favorite restaurants. Everything that makes your miserable little existence bearable gets turned to ash while you watch. Then when you are broken and hollow and begging for death, I give you options 1 or 2. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of terrified human breathing and Dr. Torres's muffled sobs. Even Riley had stopped trying to escape, recognizing the futility of running from something that could vaporize communicators with a gesture. I need to think, Marcus said finally. Think. Vala-Neth laughed again. Oh, my sweet little mammal. What makes you believe thinking will help? Your species has already made the choice. The moment your lips touched my sacred form, you declared war on the Nexari Empire. The only question now is how much you will suffer before you lose. But we didn't know, Marcus protested. We had no idea this was a sacred site. We are explorers, not warriors. Ignorance is not innocence, Vala-Neth replied coldly, and exploration without permission is just conquest with better publicity. She gestured around the chamber, taking in the violated burial goods, the scattered scanning equipment, the holes they drilled through ancient walls. You tear through sacred sites like locusts through grain, taking what you want, cataloging what you find, displaying our ancestors' remains in your museums. Did you think there would be no consequences? The other species don't seem to mind our archaeological work, Dr. Torres said weakly. The other species, Vala-Neth's voice dropped to a deadly whisper, are cowards who sold their heritage for trade agreements. The Nexari Empire does not negotiate with grave robbers. She began to glow brighter, the silver light now spreading to fill the entire chamber. The temperature continued to drop and ice crystals started forming on the humans' clothing and hair. Their breath came out in great white puffs and their lips were turning blue from the cold. I can feel it, Vala-Neth murmured, closing her eyes and tilting her head back as if savoring a fine wine. The fear, the desperation, the dawning realization that you have made a mistake you can never undo. It tastes like copper and lightning. Please, Marcus begged. There has to be something we can do, some way to make this right. Make it right. Vala-Neth opened her eyes, and they blazed like twin stars. You want to make it right? Very well. Bring me the heads of every human who authorized this expedition. Bring me the corpses of every politician who signed off on your species' expansion into Nexari territory. Bring me the ashes of every world that has ever displayed Nexari artifacts in their pathetic museums. We can't do that. Then we have nothing to discuss. The light grew blinding. The humans shielded their eyes, expecting to be vaporized at any moment. Instead, the light suddenly cut off, leaving them blinking in the dim illumination of their emergency lamps. Vala-Neth was gone. Where did she go? Dr. Terse whispered. Marcus looked around wildly, checking every shadow, every corner of the chamber. I don't know. Maybe she just vanished. Riley was examining the spot where she'd been standing. There are no footprints, no sign she was ever here at all. If it wasn't for the ice on the walls, high above them, Thex-9 finally received confirmation of his worst fears. His communications officer's voice was shaking as she delivered the report. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the Nexari temple complex. Every burial chamber on the moon is showing signs of awakening. The humans haven't just woken up one empress, they have triggered a mass resurrection of the entire royal line. Thex-9 closed all 4 of his eyes and tried not to think about what was coming next. The Nexari empresses hadn't ruled through diplomacy or trade agreements. They'd ruled through absolute, overwhelming, terrifying violence. Each one had conquered entire sectors of space before finally agreeing to enter their eternal slumber rather than fight each other for control of the galaxy. Now they were all waking up, and they were all very, very angry. In the chamber below, the humans were gathering their equipment and preparing to evacuate. They thought they'd escaped. They thought the worst was over. They had no idea that their real nightmare was just beginning. Because while they'd been cowering in fear, Vala-Neth had been very busy indeed. She'd used the kiss, that intimate moment of contact, to read Marcus Kane's genetic template, his memories, his knowledge of human space. She knew where they came from. She knew how many of them there were. She knew exactly where to find their homeworld. And she was already on her way there. The war for humanity's survival had begun the moment Marcus's lips touched stone. The humans just didn't know it yet. But they would learn. Oh, they would learn. 72 hours later, Admiral Sarah Blake was having the worst day of her military career. And considering she'd survived the Titan colony massacre and the Proxima Centauri revolt, that was saying something. "Run that by me again, Commander," she said, rubbing her temples as she stared at the tactical display showing her entire fleet. "Because I could swear you just told me that an ancient alien goddess is personally leading an armada of resurrect warriors toward Earth." Commander Jake Morrison looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Which, according to his report, he hadn't. "That's correct, Admiral. Long-range sensors picked up the fleet approximately 6 hours ago. 200 ships, all of them broadcasting Nexari Empire identification codes that went extinct a millennium ago. And they are all heading directly for Sol System. At speeds that shouldn't be possible with any known technology." Morrison pulled up the sensor readings. "Admiral, they are moving at roughly 30% light speed without any visible propulsion systems. Our best ships can barely manage 15%, and that's with full fusion drives." Blake stared at the numbers until her eyes burned. The human fleet consisted of 47 warships, the pride of Earth's military. Against most opponents, it would be a formidable force. Against ancient alien technology that defied physics, it was barely a speed bump. Contact status with the exploration team that started this mess? Team 7 returned to Earth this morning. Dr. Marcus Kane is in medical bay receiving treatment for severe hypothermia and what our psychiatrists are calling acute supernatural trauma. He keeps babbling about silver eyes and promises of extinction. Blake almost laughed. Almost. Supernatural trauma. Right. What about the alien fleet's ETA? 18 hours, Admiral. Maybe less if they decide to accelerate further. 18 hours to prepare for a war against enemies who had conquered galaxies when humans were still learning to make fire. Blake had faced impossible odds before. But this wasn't just impossible. This was insane. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command, and patch in every colony world, every mining station, every civilian transport within 50 light-years. If we are going extinct, everyone deserves to know." While Morrison scrambled to establish communications, Blake turned back to the tactical display. 200 Nexari ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest dreadnought. She'd read the classified reports about the archaeological sites humanity had been plundering. The Nexari hadn't just been an empire. They'd been the empire, the species that had made the rest of the galaxy kneel through sheer, overwhelming force. And now they were awake, and heading straight for humanity's heart. Communications established. "Admiral." Blake took a deep breath and activated the fleet-wide broadcast. "This is Admiral Sarah Blake of the Earth Defense Force. As of 1400 hours today, humanity is officially at war with the Nexari Empire." She paused, letting that sink in across dozens of ships and millions of military personnel. "I won't lie to you. The enemy fleet outguns us, outmans us, and outclasses us in every conceivable way. Their technology makes ours look like stone tools. Their experience spans millennia, while our oldest veterans have maybe 30 years of combat time. By every logical measure, we should surrender now and hope they make it quick." Another pause. Blake could almost hear the collective intake of breath across the fleet. But logic never stopped humans before. We didn't become the dominant species on Earth by being reasonable. We didn't colonize hostile worlds by following safe protocols. We didn't survive the Titan massacre by playing it smart. Her voice hardened. "We survived by being too stupid to know when we are beaten, and too stubborn to quit fighting even when we should." On the bridge around her, Blake's crew was starting to smile. Grim smiles. Death before dishonor smiles. But smiles nonetheless. The Nexari think they know humans. They think we are just another species of soft mammals who will roll over when faced with superior force. They are about to learn that humans don't fight fair, don't fight smart, and absolutely do not fight by anyone else's rules. She gestured to Morrison, who began uploading tactical data to every ship in the fleet. We have 18 hours to set up the most vicious, underhanded, dirty fighting retreat in military history. We are going to hit them with everything from nuclear mines to biological warfare. We are going to use their own resurrection technology against them. We are going to make them regret the day they decided to mess with a species too crazy to know they can't win. The tactical display updated, showing defensive positions throughout the solar system. It wasn't a battle plan, it was a death trap with humanity as both the bait and the predator. All ships, begin implementation of Operation Spite. Remember, we are not trying to win this war. We are trying to make it so expensive that they will think twice before starting the next one. Meanwhile, aboard the lead Nexari vessel, Empress Vala-Neth was discovering that her 1,000-year nap had done nothing to improve her temper. "Status report," she commanded, settling into the command throne that had been carved from a single piece of dark matter. Her tactical coordinator, a four-armed creature called Hack-7, bowed deeply before responding. "My Empress, the human homeworld lies directly ahead. Initial scans show a moderately defended system with primitive nuclear technology and basic fusion drives. How disappointingly typical." Vala-Neth examined her perfectly maintained claws, each one capable of rending starship hull plating. And their military response: 47 combat vessels arranged in standard defensive formations. They appear to be attempting to protect their primary world and major population centers. Vala-Neth laughed, the sound echoing through the command chamber like breaking crystal. 47 ships against 200. Either these mammals are incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. With respect, my Empress, our intelligence suggests both. She glanced at him with interest. "Oh? Tell me more." Hack-7 activated the holographic display, showing detailed scans of human military positions. So their defensive strategy makes no tactical sense. They have clustered their heavy battleships around their homeworld, leaving the outer system virtually undefended. Meanwhile, they have scattered smaller vessels throughout the asteroid belt in positions that offer no mutual support. Sounds like panic-driven incompetence to me. That's what I thought initially. But look at this. The display zoomed in on several asteroid mining stations. These installations have been heavily modified with what appear to be experimental weapon systems. And these scattered patrol ships, they are not patrol ships at all. They are converted mining vessels loaded with nuclear charges. Vala-Neth leaned forward, suddenly interested. They are preparing for asymmetric warfare. Exactly. They know they can't win a direct confrontation, so they are setting up to fight like guerrillas, hit-and-run attacks, suicide runs, booby traps throughout their own system. For the first time since her awakening, Vala-Neth felt something approaching respect for the humans. Clever little mammals. They understand they are going to lose, so they are planning to make victory as bloody as possible for us. Should we alter our approach, my Empress? Absolutely not. Her smile turned predatory. I want to see exactly how vicious these humans can be when cornered. It's been too long since I faced an opponent with actual spine. She gestured, and the display shifted to show the human fleet in detail. Each ship bristled with weapons that looked crude but functional. More importantly, each ship was positioned not to defend something but to attack something. Hack-7, what's the maximum casualty estimate for our fleet if we proceed with the original assault plan? Assuming the humans fight with typical mammalian desperation, perhaps 5% losses, my Empress. Their weapons simply lack the power to meaningfully damage our vessels. And if they fight with atypical intelligence and creativity? Hack-7 hesitated. That's more difficult to calculate. Humans have a documented history of exceeding tactical expectations through unconventional methods. Meaning they might find ways to hurt us that we haven't anticipated. Vala-Neth's laugh this time was genuinely delighted. Outstanding. It's been centuries since I have faced an enemy capable of surprises. Signal the fleet, we advance as planned. Yes, my Empress. Shall I order the usual terms of surrender to be broadcast? No. Her eyes glowed with silver fire. No quarter, no mercy, no terms. These mammals woke me from eternal slumber with an act of profound disrespect. They will face the full fury of the Nexari Empire, and they will learn what happens when mortals disturb the rest of gods. Back on the human flagship, Admiral Blake was reviewing the final preparations when Commander Morrison approached with a datapad and a very worried expression. "Admiral, we have received a response from the Nexari fleet. Terms of surrender." "No, ma'am. It's a declaration of total war. No prisoners, no quarter, complete extinction of the human species." Blake nodded grimly. "At least they are being honest about their intentions. What's our status on Operation Spite?" "All nuclear mines are in position. The converted freighters are standing by with their suicide charges, and engineering reports that the experimental weapons are online and ready for field testing." "Experimental weapons?" Morrison's worried expression shifted to something that might have been anticipation. "Remember those Nexari artifacts we have been studying? The ones from all those archaeological sites? Turns out our scientists have been reverse engineering more than just cultural relics." Blake raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning we might have some surprises for our ancient enemies. Nothing that can win the war, but definitely something that can make them pay attention." "Good." Blake turned back to the tactical display, watching as the Nexari fleet approached the outer edge of the solar system. "Because I want their full attention when we show them what happens to species that underestimate human stubbornness." The first Nexari ships crossed into human space exactly 18 hours after their initial detection. What followed would be remembered as either humanity's finest hour or its final tantrum, depending on who survived to write the history books. Admiral Blake opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Blake. The enemy has entered our space. Remember, we are not fighting to win. We are fighting to make sure they remember us." She paused, looking around at her bridge crew, young faces, determined faces, faces that knew they were probably about to die but had chosen to face death standing up. "Today we show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our home. Today we teach the Nexari Empire why even gods should think twice before picking a fight with monkeys who learn to build bombs." The tactical display lit up like a Christmas tree as the first wave of nuclear mines detonated around the advancing Nexari fleet. The war for humanity's survival had officially begun, and somewhere in the depths of space, other ancient things were beginning to stir, awakened by the sound of battle and the scent of spilled blood. The galaxy was about to remember why the Nexari Empire had once ruled through fear and why humanity had earned its reputation as the species too crazy to know when they were beaten. The nuclear mines barely scratched the Nexari hulls. Admiral Blake watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction, as massive explosions bloomed across the enemy fleet. For 30 seconds it looked like the desperate human gambit might actually work. Fusion fire wreathed the ancient vessels, radiation levels spiked off the charts, and electromagnetic pulses scrambled sensors across both fleets. Then the smoke cleared and every single Nexari ship emerged completely unharmed. "Well," Blake muttered, "that's unfortunate." Commander Morrison was frantically checking his instruments. "Admiral, those were Mark 7 nuclear devices. Each one carried enough firepower to crack a moon in half." "How are they still functional?" "Because they are not just ships," Blake realized with growing horror. "They are weapons of war, built by a species that conquered galaxies. Our best technology is probably Stone Age compared to what they are packing." On the flagship's main screen, a communication request blinked insistently. Blake accepted it, and Empress Vala-Neth's beautiful, terrible face filled the display. "Was that supposed to hurt?" she asked pleasantly. "Because it felt more like a gentle massage, though I appreciate the welcome party. It's been ages since anyone greeted me with nuclear fire." Blake stepped forward, meeting those silver eyes without flinching. "Empress Vala-Neth? I presume. I'm Admiral Sarah Blake of the Earth Defense Force. I suppose you are here to discuss terms of surrender." "Oh, my dear little mammal." Vala-Neth's smile was absolutely radiant. "There will be no surrender, no terms, no mercy. You woke me from eternal slumber, and now you will pay the price for that discourtesy." "And what price would that be?" "The complete extinction of your entire species, of course. Starting with this pathetic fleet, then moving on to your colonies, and finally ending with your homeworld burning in solar fire." Blake nodded as if this was perfectly reasonable. "I see, and I suppose you expect us to just sit here quietly while you commit genocide." "I expect you to die screaming," Vala-Neth replied cheerfully. Though I suppose quiet acceptance would be refreshing after dealing with so many dramatic last stands over the centuries. Well, you are going to be disappointed. Blake gestured to Morrison, who began implementing the next phase of Operation Spite. Because humans don't do quiet acceptance. We do loud, violent, absolutely unreasonable resistance right up until the very end. The converted mining freighters suddenly burst from concealment among the asteroids, their hulls packed with enough fusion charges to vaporize small cities. They accelerated toward the Nexari fleet on direct collision courses, their crews broadcasting final messages to families back on Earth, ramming attacks. Vala-Neth sounded genuinely amused. How delightfully primitive. Watch and learn, little Admiral, as I demonstrate why the Nexari ruled the galaxy. She gestured casually, and invisible force lances reached out from her flagship. The suicide freighters simply stopped, not destroyed, not disabled, frozen in space as if caught in solidified time. Gravitational manipulation, Morrison breathed. They are controlling space-time itself. And now, Vala-Neth continued conversationally, I will show you what happens to mammals who inconvenience me. The frozen freighters suddenly reversed course, accelerating back toward the human fleet 3 times faster than their original attack speed. Blake had perhaps 10 seconds to watch her own weapons turned against her before the first converted ship slammed into the destroyer, HMS Wellington. The explosion lit up half the solar system. Impressive, Vala-Neth observed as debris rained across space. Your people certainly know how to pack an explosive charge. I might actually use similar tactics when I get around to sterilizing your other worlds. Blake's jaw tightened. You are enjoying this. Immensely. It's been far too long since I have fought an opponent with any creativity. Most species just line up their biggest ships and hope superior firepower will save them. But you humans, you think like predators. I can respect that, even as I exterminate you for it. Signal from the secondary fleet, Admiral Morrison reported quietly. Captain Rodriguez is requesting permission to implement Contingency 7. Blake hesitated. Contingency 7 was their absolute last resort. The option they'd only discussed in theoretical terms because the risks were so enormous, but with conventional tactics proving useless and the Nexari treating their best efforts like entertainment, desperate times called for desperate measures. Permission granted. Tell Rodriguez to light it up. Across the solar system, hidden deep within Jupiter's radiation-soaked magnetosphere, a modified research station began powering up systems that should never have been built. Amanda Foster, the station's chief scientist, watched her instruments climb toward dangerous levels with a mixture of terror and anticipation. Final systems check complete, she announced to her skeleton crew. The Nexari energy matrix is stable and ready for activation. Are you absolutely certain this will work? Asked Chief Engineer Tommy Park. Foster laughed bitterly. Tommy, I'm not even certain it won't tear a hole in reality itself. But we are way past certainty at this point. We are into pure, desperate hope. The weapon they'd built was humanity's greatest achievement, and potentially their final mistake. Using artifacts stolen from Nexari burial sites across the galaxy, human scientists had managed to reverse engineer a fragment of ancient technology. They didn't fully understand how it worked. The physics involved concepts that human science hadn't even discovered yet. But they knew what it was designed to do. Energy levels at 90%, Foster reported. Beginning target acquisition. Back in the main battle, Vala-Neth was systematically dismantling the human fleet with casual efficiency. Each destroyed ship was a work of art. Precisely targeted strikes that left the crews just enough time to realize they were dying before the final explosion ended their terror. Your turn, Admiral, she announced, focusing her attention on Blake's flagship. Any final words for posterity? I do so enjoy collecting last statements from extinct species. Blake smiled grimly. Just one. You should have stayed asleep. And why is that? Because while you were napping for 1,000 years, humanity was learning. We have been studying your people, your technology, your burial sites. We have been figuring out how your weapons work. Vala-Neth's expression shifted slightly. For the first time since awakening, she looked genuinely curious rather than merely amused. Impossible. Nexari technology is beyond mammalian comprehension. Maybe the advanced stuff. But the basics? Blake's smile turned predatory. Turns out ancient weapons of mass destruction aren't that complicated once you strip away all the decorative elements. Deep in Jupiter's magnetosphere, Dr. Foster completed her final calculations. Target locked. Firing solution confirmed. Admiral Blake, you have control. Blake's hand hovered over the activation switch. She'd spent her entire career following rules, protocols, proper military procedure. Now she was about to unleash a weapon that could theoretically crack planets based on technology stolen from alien graves powered by principles that violated half the laws of physics. It was possibly the most human thing she'd ever done. Fire, she commanded. The weapon that emerged from Jupiter's shadow defied every expectation. It wasn't a beam or a projectile. It was something far more fundamental. Reality itself seemed to ripple around the Nexari fleet as space-time began responding to commands written in mathematics humanity barely understood. Vala-Neth's flagship shuddered as gravitational fields fluctuated wildly around it. Emergency alarms began shrieking throughout the ancient vessel as systems that had functioned flawlessly for millennia suddenly found themselves operating under impossible conditions. "What have you done?" she demanded, her perfect composure finally cracking. "We have turned your own technology against you," Blake replied. "Every artifact we have excavated, every piece of Nexari tech we have studied, every grave we have robbed, it all went into building this weapon. Congratulations, Empress. You are being killed by your own ancestors." The space around the Nexari fleet continued to distort as the human weapon reached full power. Ships that had survived the fall of empires began buckling under stresses that shouldn't have been possible. Crew members who had conquered galaxies found themselves floating helplessly as artificial gravity failed. But Vala-Neth was far from finished. "Clever little mammals," she snarled, her silver eyes blazing with fury. "You think you understand our technology? You think you can wield power that took us millennia to master?" She raised both hands, and every Nexari ship in the fleet began glowing with the same silver light that had marked her awakening. The gravitational distortions around them stabilized, then reversed, as ancient systems designed for warfare beyond human imagination came online. "Let me show you the difference between using our weapons and understanding them." The counterattack that followed redefined the concept of overkill. Energy beams that could boil oceans reached out from the Nexari fleet, targeting not just the human ships but the modified research station hidden in Jupiter's magnetosphere. Space itself seemed to scream as forces that could reshape matter at the molecular level tore through human formations. But something unexpected happened. The human weapon, already unstable from channeling alien energies beyond its design specifications, began resonating with the Nexari counterattack. Instead of being destroyed, it started absorbing the incoming energy, growing stronger with each impact. "Impossible," Vala-Neth breathed, watching her most powerful weapons feed the very device they were trying to destroy. Dr. Foster, monitoring the situation from her doomed station, began laughing hysterically. "It's a feedback loop. The Nexari energy signatures are identical. Their weapons think ours is part of their own fleet." "Shut it down," Blake commanded. "I can't. The resonance cascade is self-sustaining now. It's drawing power from their attacks." The weapon that humanity had built from stolen alien technology was now beyond anyone's control. Fed by the combined energies of two fleets, it began doing exactly what it had been designed to do: reshape local spacetime according to ancient Nexari programming. Unfortunately, that programming had originally been intended to destroy enemies of the Nexari Empire. And according to the weapon's millennium-old logic, anything that wasn't Nexari was an enemy. Admiral Morrison reported with growing horror. "The weapon is targeting both fleets. It's not distinguishing between human and Nexari signatures anymore." Blake felt the universe's sense of humor finally revealing itself. Humanity's last desperate gambit was about to wipe out both sides of the conflict. "How long until it reaches critical energy levels?" 30 seconds. Vala-Neth, meanwhile, had reached a similar conclusion. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the Empress of the Nexari Empire was facing her own mortality, and she was absolutely furious about it. "You suicidal mammals," she screamed across the communication channel. "You have doomed us all." "Yeah, well," Blake replied with the kind of calm that only comes from accepting the inevitable. "That's humans for you. If we can't win, we make sure nobody else does either. This is insane. This is Tuesday. You clearly haven't been paying attention to how we operate. The weapon reached critical mass, and space-time began collapsing in on itself. Both fleets found themselves caught in a gravitational maelstrom that was rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in a steadily expanding sphere. But then, in the final seconds before mutual annihilation, something remarkable happened. Vala-Neth made a choice. Instead of using her remaining power to try saving herself, she reached out with abilities that transcended normal understanding and grabbed every human ship in the fleet. Not to destroy them, to shield them. "What are you doing?" Blake gasped, as silver energy surrounded her flagship. "Something incredibly stupid," Vala-Neth replied grimly. "I'm saving the species that just tried to kill me." "Why?" The Nexari Empress was quiet for a moment as she poured centuries of accumulated power into protecting her enemies from the weapon they'd unleashed. When she spoke again, her voice carried a strange note of respect. "Because in 1,000 years of conquest, no species has ever impressed me as much as you have in the past hour. You faced impossible odds, you used our own technology against us. And when defeat was inevitable, you chose mutual destruction over surrender." She laughed, though it came out strained from the effort of maintaining her shields. "You are not just warriors, you are artists of warfare." The weapon finally reached maximum output and collapsed in on itself, taking most of the Nexari fleet with it. When the gravitational storms finally subsided, only a handful of ships remained from both sides. Vala-Neth's flagship was barely functional, its ancient hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere. Blake's vessel wasn't much better off, held together by emergency force fields and desperate engineering. "So," Blake said into the sudden silence, "what happens now?" Vala-Neth studied the tactical display, taking in the devastation they'd wrought upon each other. Now we negotiate." "I thought you didn't negotiate with grave robbers." "I don't negotiate with grave robbers," the Empress agreed. "But I do negotiate with species that can turn my own ancestors' weapons against me and nearly win." "You have earned the right to be called equals." Blake leaned back in her command chair, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. Simple. Humanity withdraws from all Nexari burial sites and returns the artifacts you have stolen. In exchange, the Nexari Empire recognizes human space as sovereign territory and agrees to a non-aggression pact. And if we refuse... Vala-Neth's smile returned, though it was considerably less terrifying than before. "Then we spend the next few centuries trying to kill each other, and based on today's performance we will probably both succeed. Frankly, I'm not sure the galaxy would survive the rematch." Blake considered this for a moment. "Counter-proposal. We keep the artifacts we have already studied. They are part of human scientific heritage now. But we agree to consult with Nexari representatives before disturbing any new sites. Joint archaeological ventures, shared research, that sort of thing. You want to make grave robbing a collaborative effort? I want to make sure the next time someone kisses an ancient statue, we all know what we are getting into ahead of time." Vala-Neth laughed, a sound of genuine delight rather than predatory amusement. "Dr. Marcus Kane will be pleased to know his moment of stupidity led to the first diplomatic alliance between species in Nexari history." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes. Though I reserve the right to personally execute any human who kisses me without permission." "Fair enough." As the two fleets began the delicate process of extracting themselves from the debris field, Blake reflected on the chain of events that had brought them to this point. A joke kiss, an awakened goddess, and humanity's pathological refusal to go quietly into extinction had somehow resulted in the most unlikely peace treaty in galactic history. Admiral Morrison asked quietly, "What do we tell Earth Command about all this?" Blake grinned. "We tell them that humanity just fought a war against ancient gods and managed to negotiate a draw. And then we recommend they put a really big warning sign on any alien artifacts that look suspiciously kissable." In the depths of space, other ancient powers that had been stirring at the sound of battle gradually settled back into their slumber. The galaxy remained dangerous, but it was also now home to a new kind of partnership, one born from mutual respect between species that understood the true art of warfare. And somewhere in a medical bay on Earth, Dr. Marcus Kane sneezed and wondered why he suddenly felt like the most historically significant person in human history. He was right, though he'd never know it. Sometimes the most important moments in galactic history begin with the stupidest possible decisions. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, those stupid decisions lead to something extraordinary. The kiss that doomed humanity had also saved it. Funny how the universe works out that way.